here from Liberated, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own gypsum skirt. We're going to be sewing view A, which features French seamed pockets and flat felled panels. Let's get started.
We will begin by sewing the pocket facing to the side panels. Place one pocket facing on top of its corresponding side panel with right sides facing, matching the notches, and pin along the curved edge to sew. Sew along the curved edge using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Trim your seam allowance to a 1/4 inch and clip along the curve. Press the seam allowance open and then press it towards the pocket facing. Understitch the seam allowance to the pocket facing a scant 1/8 inch from the sewn seam. This helps to keep the pocket facing from popping out of the pocket when you're wearing the skirt. Fold the pocket facing to the wrong side of the side panel and press along the curve. Repeat these steps for the other pocket facing and side panel pair. Next, we will complete the pockets using French seams. Match the wrong side of the curved bottom edge of the pocket facing to the wrong side of the curved bottom of the pocket using the notches as a guide. Pin in place and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press the seam allowance open and then towards the pocket facing, and then fold the pocket piece up, right sides facing, towards the curved edge of the pocket facing and side panel. Press along the seam that you just sewed. Enclose the raw edges of the seam by sewing 3/8 of an inch from the folded, curved bottom edge of the pocket, finishing the French seam. Using the notches as guides and aligning the bottom of the pocket to the lower notch, pin your pocket piece to the pocket facing and side panel along the side edges. Increase your stitch length and baste all 3 layers together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Repeat these steps for the other side panel. Next, we're going to sew the fronts and backs to the side panels using flat felled seams. In the pattern, we have you lay out the 4 skirt pieces with right sides up, left to right. Skirt back, side panel, skirt front, side panel, and pin together each long edge and sew each long edge. But for this tutorial, I'm going to do 1 full flat felled seam to show you the technique. Pin together each long edge, matching the notches, with the wrong sides of the fabric facing. Sew the long edge using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. This seam allowance will be visible from the right side of the fabric. Press the seam allowance open and then trim the allowance closest to the side panel to a 1/4 inch. As you trim, you will be removing one layer of fabric up to the pocket piece, at which time you will start trimming back the pocket seam allowance as well. The other seam allowance layer, closest to the back or front, remains at a 5/8 inch. Trim slowly and mindfully here. You don't want to accidentally trim into the skirt fabric or the untouched 5/8 inch seam allowance layer. Press the untouched seam allowances towards the side panels. Turn under the seam allowance by 1/4 inch, enclosing your trimmed seam allowance. Finger press in place and either pin or use Wonder Tape to hold it in place for sewing. Edge stitch the folded under edge in place along the entire length of the skirt. You'll repeat this for all of the skirt seams. Congratulations on sewing 4 flat-felled seams. We're almost to the end. Prepare the waistband by folding it in half, right sides together so that the short edges touch. Pin and sew along the short edge, forming a loop. Press this seam allowance open. There's no need to finish it as it will be enclosed in the waistband casing. Fold one edge of the waistband 1/2 inch towards the wrong side and press. You will now have a loop with one long edge pressed towards the wrong side. With right sides together, pin the unpressed edge of the waistband to the top of the skirt, aligning the waistband seam with the center back notches of the skirt. The other notches on the waistband line up with the panel seams. Sew the waistband to the skirt using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Grade this seam allowance to a 1/4 inch and press towards the waistband. Fold the waistband down so that the pressed, folded edge is just beyond the seam that attaches the waistband to the skirt, and pin in place or use Wonder Tape. Make sure your pins are perpendicular to the seam allowance and that the pin heads are facing the waist opening. Turn the skirt right side out and then begin stitching in the ditch from the right side of the waistband, beginning about 1.5 inches from the center back of the skirt. You will be just catching the folded under waistband edge in your stitching. If you used pins, don't remove them as you sew to keep your fabric from shifting. As long as you're going slow, you won't break any needles. Continue stitching in the ditch until you are 1.5 inches from the center back. You have a waistband casing with the opening at the center back for inserting your elastic. Once you've determined the correct length for your waistband elastic, attach a safety pin to one short end and use it to guide your elastic through the casing. Take care to make sure you're not twisting or folding the elastic as you go. Checking a final time to make sure the elastic isn't twisted, overlap the ends by about an inch and stitch together securely. I like to use a rectangle with an X through the center. Tuck the elastic into the casing and pin closed. With the right side of the skirt facing up, stitch in the ditch, enclosing the last bit of your waistband casing. Be careful not to catch your elastic in the stitching. Increase your stitch length to 3.5 millimeters. I like to pin at the center front, center back, and sides of my waistband elastic before doing this step. Beginning at the center back of the waistband, 5/8 of an inch from the top, stitch around the entire waistband while stretching the elastic taut. Stretching the elastic while you sew will make your straight stitches into a stretch stitch so your thread won't break when you pull on your skirt. I like to use the pins I've inserted at the center back, center front, and sides in order to know where to hold my elastic so I'm not pulling it too far. Sew another line of stitches 5/8 of an inch from the bottom seam of the waistband, forming 2 lines of parallel stitches. To hem your skirt, press the raw edge of the skirt 1/2 inch towards the wrong side. Press once more towards the wrong side by 1 inch. Pin in place or use Wonder Tape and edge stitch around the entire hem.
thank you so much for following along with our gypsum skirt sew along. I hope you had fun sewing and I hope you love your new skirt.